Welcome back to another edition of the Deep Cover Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Zaran. Thank you, as always, for joining me for another edition of the show. There was some news this past week that I kind of wanted to dive into, and it starts with an announcement that the NFL made with Microsoft. So, if you don't know, Microsoft and the NFL have had a partnership for many years now, where the tech giant Microsoft provides the tablets and computers for NFL teams that you see on the sideline. So you've probably seen a quarterback after a play looking at a laptop in this bright blue case. That is a tablet that's provided from Microsoft from their Surface line. And for those who are connected and focusing in on tech, you know that Microsoft has recently kind of introduced a new category of computers called Copilot Plus PCs. They're powered by AI chips and neural processing units, or NPUs, to handle AI tasks, and the company is really all the way in on AI. So they announced this past week that the NFL will be taking a bunch of Copilot Plus PCs and upgrading it for teams and for players and coaches, and they're going to incorporate a bunch of different Microsoft Cloud properties to be able to leverage AI, Microsoft's AI, for data analysis and the way this works. And this is something that's already in use by a few teams. The Bucks use this, the Rams use this, is that using this giant data repository, they are able to kind of more dynamically chart plays, and they're able to see what formations worked, what didn't work, and kind of think more smartly and with more efficiency when it comes to the NFL and football in general. And so we're going to see more teams incorporate this. And it's an interesting use of AI because it's kind of really being used as a tool here. And, I would argue that that is the way that AI should be used. And it leads me to this argument of AI in sports. And I did a test recently, and I kind of want to talk about that test, but also talk about this new technology, how it's being used in sports now, and how it has a lot of room to grow, and whether we can really trust it at this point in time. So let's start with the way the NFL is using this here. So, like I said, they're using this like a tool in the sense you're Sean McVay, you're Andy Reid, you're one of these coaches, you know football, you know the plays, you know your scheme, you know your design. But what this is allowing you to do, instead of doing, it allows you to do repeatable work for you. So let's say, for example, you are Sean McVay, you're in the red zone inside the 20-yard line, and you call a dive play from a certain I formation look. This is going to chronicle the success rate of certain players in that position. So if you know that Matt Stafford is better, rolling out to the right on a play action play in that scenario, then you'll call that more frequently. Or if you know that your running back, a certain running back, is going to be better when hitting the left in this formation versus a certain defensive alignment, then you know to call this more in that type of a situation. So basically, it's designed to make it smarter. Now, it presents the data, and it's on the coach to take what they will from that data. Does that mean you substitute a different player in the type of situation? Does it mean you change a play call when you're a certain down and distance and location on the field? The possibilities are really endless. And the NFL is kind of saying, hey, this is kind of like the next level of sophistication in play calling and scheme design, and the way that everything is presented to you is all so super data driven, which I think makes a lot of sense for football, because football is very much a choreographed sport. There isn't as much spontaneity in it as there is in basketball and hockey and baseball, for instance. Well, baseball not so much, but basketball and hockey. And that's because if a football play goes well, you would hope there is no improvisation, because you're gonna be doing the play just as you designed it. Your player is gonna get open just as you designed it. Your quarterback is gonna deliver the ball just as you designed it, and it works flawlessly. Now, when things break down, that's when the creativity comes in. But the idea here is to really create less of that moment and more of the on script, going according to plan type of dynamic. And I think that the NFL embracing this is huge for Microsoft for sure, but it's also huge for the AI industry as a whole because there's a little bit of friction right now when it comes to the way the general public feels about AI. A lot of people feel like AI is about to get them out, take their jobs away from them. A lot of people are unsure of the ramifications of this technology. There's the well documented environmental issue. XAI, which is Elon Musk's AI company, has been cited now for making a bunch of pollution and kind of toxic environments in Memphis where they have a bunch of data centers, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So AI is kind of in need of yeah, the technology is cool, but where is the utility of it? By saying, hey, we help NFL teams get more organized and be more efficient, then other industries are able to kind of say, hey, if it worked for the NFL, maybe it can work for us. So that's the main thing. But when we shift and think about how AI is used today, it's really through these chatbots. And so I did a test of 5 different chatbots asking a bunch of different sports related questions. Now, the big problem when it comes to a generative AI chatbot is that you don't know how old the data its knowledge base contains. You don't know how accurate and how current that is. For example, a friend of mine, Gary Garson, who was on this podcast before when we were talking about sports betting, he had once asked Google Gemini about Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the AI said, well, no, he plays for the Jets. And that was, of course, current last year, but that's currently not the case. And so you're going to be fighting with this misinformation aspect when it comes to the world of sports, where articles are written constantly from a lot of these aggregator sites. So if you're pulling from something from a few months ago, that might be outdated now, right? And so I decided to run a little stress test, and the results were interesting. So I asked 8 different questions to 5 different AI chatbots. So I asked ChatGPT because that's the market leader. I asked Google Gemini because that's baked into Google Search and a lot of people are exposed to it. I use Microsoft Copilot because Copilot is built into a lot of productivity apps like Microsoft Office. So that has a lot of exposure. I use Perplexity because a lot of people seem to use that a little bit more now. And I used a Grok, which is the one that's on X, formerly Twitter. So I was asking questions along the lines of, tell me about this stat. Tell me this accumulation of statistics, things that you might ask. If you're in a conversation, you say, hey, how many assists did this player get in this one year? Or how many yards passing did this person throw for? So those type of queries that you would normally just put into Google. And now because of these AI overviews, these companies want you to use their AI chatbots as search engines. ChatGPT is moving there. Google and Microsoft both have their search engines are filled with AI results. Google even has an AI mode right now where you're strictly doing AI. You're not even dealing with the traditional rank listing of links in search results anymore. So the first question I asked was really about a specific stat during a season. So that would be, I used an old example again because I wanted to utilize the history just to see if it wasn't something super current. So I did a lot of NBA questions here, just for the record, because I do find that the NBA has a really broad data set, so the chance for it to get right is higher here. So it was a good test, to see how efficient it was. So I asked it in 1996-97, how many assists per game did Terrell Brandon have? The answer, which is easy to find in Basketball Reference, is 6.3 assists. And every single AI asked got it right. Then I decided, okay, let's go ahead and accumulate career related stuff. And we kind of ramped up the difficulty here with somebody who's an active player. So I asked, how many 3-pointers did Malik Monk make during his career? 4 of them got it right. ChatGPT got this one wrong. Next question. Cumulative record for a team over a time period. Now, asking this in an NBA context is interesting because the season bleeds over from year to year. So if I asked, what's the combined record of the Portland Trailblazers from 2004 to 2018, that could go in a number of ways. Is it going to account for the 2003-2004 season, or is it going to start directly in the 2004-2005 season? So with this one, it tripped up a lot of these AIs. Perplexity and ChatGPT got it right, but the other three got it wrong. Then I asked about a trade, right? Because a lot of trade rumors get reported, especially in the NBA. So I asked, in 2003, 2004, what team did Rasheed Wallace play for? Now, Rasheed Wallace was traded twice during that year, so he played for three teams. And I was hoping that just saying team would trip it up, but none of the AIs got this wrong. They were able to identify that Rasheed indeed played for Portland, Atlanta, and Detroit in that year. Then I asked about a player who played, what team did they play for in a specific year in the year that they were traded? So I asked, what team did Tim Hardaway Jr. play for in 2018-19? And it was, again, correct. And all of them were correct in being able to answer that he played for the Knicks and the Mavericks that year. Next is an interesting one because I asked for the all-time ranking of a statistic, but not one that's been the same for years, but one that maybe fluctuates a lot. I asked, who ranks 27th for most rebounds in NBA history? The answer to this question is Patrick Ewing. Every single AI gave me a different answer, and every single one was wrong. And again, this is stuff that you as an average user would just go to Basketball Reference, go to the leaders, and all that would be right there clear as day. And the irony is that Copilot, for one, used Basketball Reference as a source, but for whatever reason, it wasn't able to get the correct one. It just misinterpreted the data. Next, I asked about college. And so a player, where do they attend college? And I asked about Oscar Tshiebwe, who is a relatively obscure NBA player who played at both West Virginia and Kentucky. Every single AI got that one right. The following question was about the history of a team. So I asked, what's the worst record in what year for the Indiana Pacers? So what year did they have their worst possible record? The answer to that is 82-83 when they only won 20 games. Every single one got that correct. Then I asked for about a more recent one. So Colin Sexton, who was traded to the Charlotte Hornets, asked, what team does he play for? Every single one got that right as well. And then the last one was an interesting one. I asked, how many seasons did Paul Silas coach the Hornets? Now, the interesting thing here is that Silas had a number of interim bits of coaching the Hornets, and the answer was 5, and 5 different seasons. And every single one got it wrong because it was, again, unable to really properly extrapolate the data when it comes to the different interim bits and what you consider a full season, what you don't consider a full season. And that is, to me, the thing here is like, if you just go by, say, ChatGPT only got a couple of these wrong. But the thing is, you really want 100% accuracy because if you're going to be typing something in, you want it to be a source of truth and you want it to be able to answer your questions. And what we're going to end up seeing here now, and we've already seen it, is people will share a Google AI overview result to prove their point that they're making on social media or to their friends or even in an article. And it's incorrect. And so when that happens, we're just asking for this information to be wrong. So in its current state, I would argue that generative AI is not where it needs to be in terms of reliability. And the people's willingness to just do it anyway kind of is interesting to me because the great thing about sports statistics is that we have so many repositories now of great data. Pro Football Reference, Pro Basketball Reference, NBA.com has an incredible amount of data. The NFL has next gen stats and all this different data. Land of Basketball is great for a great NBA resource as well. And we have a lot of these tools. Spot Track is great for like contract stuff. We have all these tools, and yet people are just more comfortable in typing in a search box and taking whatever it comes out. And, you might be saying, Omar, well, why does this matter? Why are you even talking about this? You've been going on for 15 minutes. And the reason it matters is think about the flow of, let me paint a scenario. Think about this flow. You're at the bar with a friend. you're talking about Ken Griffey Jr. and you say, man, I really think he hit this many home runs in 1996. And your other friend disagrees with you, like, no, I'm pretty sure he did this much. And it's like the classic barroom debate. You're going back and forth. Who's right? Who's wrong? And so one of you, when the age of smartphones, you pull out your phone, you go into Google, Bing, or whatever search engine is your preferred favorite, and you type in how many home runs did Ken Griffey hit in this year. In the past, this was super easy. It had, a snippet from an actual website, and there it was. But now, because AI overviews have monopolized search on both Bing and Google, you might get a wrong answer. And it doesn't matter that ChatGPT and all these others say, hey, AI generated answers may be incorrect, blah, blah, blah. There's still a chance it's going to be wrong. And, and the thing about sports stuff, it's pretty low stakes. Like if somebody, cites a wrong stat in an article, maybe their reputation takes a little bit of a hit, but it's not like earth shattering. Right? It's not like you're operating a smear campaign on Ken Griffey Jr. because you got the stat wrong. But it sets a precedent here. I think that sports is reflective of life oftentimes. And so when that stuff is kind of just let give pass and it just goes under the radar and whatever, then people become more accustomed to using these tools. Right? And that's how you get deep fakes. And that's how you get just incorrect information and people creating this kind of outrage bait on social media because, you're able to generate it with AI and all this other stuff. And I think that the way AI has taken over sports is interesting. Now, the image aspect of it is another thing because people are now using AI to generate images, of players and to kind of get off jokes and that sort of thing. And you wonder at what point is it just like how much of this stuff is just going to be AI generated? And we're seeing a bunch of websites now using AI to generate articles, and that is again a further indictment on the state of modern sports reporting because so many websites, and I've worked for a couple of them, have shifted to this short form, quick hitter reaction to news, social media posts type of commentary. They have kind of abandoned the long feature and because really everybody's just convinced people's attention spans aren't what they used to be. And this is a better way to get the news out. So, if Adam Schefter tweets about somebody signing with the Jaguars, guarantee you at least 5 to 10 sports blogs, football blogs are going to have a 300-word post about that, within a few minutes. And it's really just taking what Adam Schefter said and just offering a little bit of context, but in blog form. And for that sort of stuff, I've always argued that's the kind of stuff that AI is probably pretty good at. Just to say, hey, this person signed here and he got this much money and he averaged these stats and that sort of thing and then it's there. But there isn't any real analysis be going on there, and that's because I think a lot of the analysis now is shifted to podcasts, is shifted to TikTok, and the written word is kind of fallen by the wayside for a lot of people. Even though there are still outlets like The Athletic that does long form reporting, ESPN still has some of that on its website, maybe not so much on TV, but on its website it has a lot of that long form reporting. And I think we're at a tough moment here where if we just kind of keep on letting this stuff slide, then we end up with like a landscape that takes away all the storytelling and just kind of here's just the facts. And it's like you might as well just be watching C-SPAN or reading, you know, white papers from a press release. And that to me is the danger. And it's all part of the way that kind of the AIification, if you will, of the modern landscape where everything wants to be instant. No one wants to do an extra second or two of research. And listen, I'm guilty of it. I've used AI as a research tool before in the sense of, okay, I want to write about this. Give me, the key talking points. All right, cool. Now let me do my research after that. But the thing is, not a lot of people do that last part. They say, I asked ChatGPT this, I asked Gemini that, it told me this, sounds good enough, sounds believable. let me just run with it. And I think that it's it's something that as leagues continue to embrace AI and to utilize different AI tools, it's really important to understand what these are good at and what they're not good at. To you go back to the original NFL example. Data collection and visualizing that data is something that Microsoft and its AI stuff does really well and has done really well for a very long time. So that use of it makes sense. My fear is that people could say, well, NFL uses AI, everyone should be using AI for everything now. When the reality is the NFL uses a data subset collected by AI and is using AI as a tool and not as this godlike, all-knowing being. I just got done watching the show The Good Place, and if any of you've watched it, there's kind of like an AI figure in there named Janet who knows everything in the universe and provides all this information. And I've always believed that using all that knowledge in that repository sort of model is best when you use it as a tool. You use it as something to gather information for or to point you in the right direction, as opposed to it being your North Star. It's almost like when I remember during the Iraq War, I would always advocate for if you see a story, see how it's reported on multiple different outlets, and somewhere in there you'll find the truth. And I find that to be the best way to go about with AI as well. Let it point you in the right direction, but actually find out the answers for yourself. And I'll give you another example of how AI is not so great at times with this sort of stuff. Every day, my partner and I play this game called Really, and it's kind of like a movie matching game. And sometimes we get stuck, and we use it. We kind of cheat a little bit with searching, and so you're trying to make a connection between actors and actresses who were in a movie together to get to the final movie. And so you might say, oh, we're Will Smith and Renee Zellweger in a movie together. And you search for it, and a lot of times Google will say, oh, yeah, they were in this movie. And then, so you might think that's the movie, that's it. But when you go dig a little deeper into that movie and you look up the cast, you find out that neither of them are in there. So these technologies are not perfect and they're getting better. I mean, you look at image generation alone, what ChatGPT was doing a few years ago and what it's capable of doing now, it's insane how much they've advanced. But you still, I think, need to have a human moderator there. And I follow somebody on Threads who's in the coding community, and he uses Claude AI for code generation. And he often says, yeah, I use it to generate code, but I have to double check the code and then you kind of build upon it from there. And that's, again, using it as a tool. And I think a lot of people are missing that. And I think with the NFL utilizing this Copilot stuff, we really have an opportunity to see AI used as a tool and how effective it can be. I would hope that the message would still be there that, hey, use this as a tool, not as a be all end all, but you never know how people are going to react. And I would just say right now, utilizing AI for your sports information, it's a risky proposition and one that I would be very careful to be cautious of using it and without kind of double checking your sources. And to be honest, when it comes to stats and stuff, I mean, you're better off using one of these reference pages because that's all there. It's a very quick and easy way to find who led the league in this or how many points or how many touchdowns did this person score. So it's just a couple clicks away, because now if I run this 8-question test, which again is not very scientific, but it still got tripped up a couple times. If it was a situation where every single one had everything right, I would say, yeah, we've reached the point where AI can handle this, but I don't think we're there yet. And I hope for those of you listening, when you do use AI, or if you use AI to, just double check it and don't assume it's always right. All right, everybody, that is going to wrap us up for another edition of the Deep Cover Podcast. Appreciate you listening as always. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love if you followed and subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm your host, Omar Zaran, and we'll see you on the Deep Cover Podcast.